Hey there, welcome to my channel. Happy September. Today, we're here to talk about the books that I read in August. So, I read 15 books this month, and I've got to admit, this month was a little bit of a banger for me. I read some really great books, and I'm ready to rave, so let's go. First up, we have the finality. Finality? First up, we have the Off Balance series by Lucia Franco. So, if you remember from last month, I just started the series and had read the first two. So this month, I knew because it had sucked me in that I needed to finish it, and I needed to finish it immediately. However bittersweet that might be, that I had to say goodbye to these characters. That being said, I did finish, which we have released, twist, and dismount. Now, I'm not going to go into what these individual books are about because I am not here to spoil anything about you if you haven't read these. If you haven't read these, why? What are you doing? Get on this bandwagon, please. Okay? Okay. This follows Adriana Rossi and Konstantin Kornikova, or as we affectionately come to know them as Ria and Kova. Ria's main goal in life, her absolute main goal in life, is to be an American Olympic gymnast. Some pretty lofty goals, right? That's where Kova comes in. He actually was an Olympic gymnast. He has the gold medals to prove it. Now, they get off to a bit of a rocky start because Kova really doesn't see much in Adriana. She's young, she's a little bit naive, she doesn't have the passion, he doesn't see that in her until one night they're doing some extra conditioning in the gym and they start talking, and that's where their connection sparks. He realizes she's very similar to me. She has the same goals as me. We have this connection. Is it controversial? Yes. You have a 16-year-old girl and you have a 32-year-old man who form quite an intense bond. And quite toxic. I mean, it's intense and it at times is very toxic, but it is such a beautiful story, and I implore you to read this if you haven't. By the way, I don't think that I mentioned at the very beginning of this obviously is an age gap. It's a taboo and a forbidden romance, and it is a teacher-student romance. It's beautifully written. You see inside these characters, and you come to love them. You come to, you feel all the feels. Did I want to punch Ria in the face sometimes? Because I'm like, girl, if you don't stop and take care of yourself and like listen to the doctors and listen to your body that is literally like, I need a break, you're not going to make it to the Olympics. Like, what are you doing? But at the forefront of this is this relationship, and it's absolutely beautiful. And it's got Kova, the most amazing, raw, intense Russian man ever, to the point where I'm like, I love my husband, okay? I love my husband, love him, he's my everything. But if this fictional person showed up on my doorstep today, we would have a problem. I would have a moral dilemma. I would have to indecent proposal this situation because I'm gonna need a night, maybe even two. Okay, do you see what I'm saying? So why are you not reading this? Please go out and read this. And then also, don't have to say goodbye to these characters because on September 6th, Lucia is putting out the 6th novel. Now, as you can imagine, I am on literal pins and needles for this. I cannot wait until September 6th. I can devour this and get right back into this world again with Kova and Ria. Even though it is considered the 6th book in the series, it is more of like a companion novel, a little bit more than a novella, I think, because it's going to have a myriad of information in it. We're going to have playlists and an interview with Kova and Lucia, which I think is fucking amazing. It's going to have notebook inserts from Kova and Ria's notebook. It'll have a love letter from Kova, and it'll also have a little insert into Avery and Xavier's upcoming, I think it's going to be a duology. It's coming out in January or February of next year. And if you don't already know, Avery is Ria's best friend and Xavier is Ria's brother. So I'm really, really excited and anticipating that as well. Now, if you already haven't guessed, I don't know where you have been, but I clearly have given this entire series, especially Twist and Dismount, 5 stars. I wish I could give them more, but I can't, so 5 stars. For Spice, I gave Release a 4, and I gave Twist and Dismount a 5. Next up, we have Don't Kiss the Bride by Carrie and Cole. Now, this is a dual POV. It is an age gap. It is a marriage of convenience. It is angsty. It's got a little bit of a slow burn, and it is amazing. This follows Skylar and Jude, or Lucky. Skylar is a senior in high school, and her and Jude met because Jude's construction company is remodeling a house that is right next to the high school. Skylar's home life is lacking. It is very unhealthy. However, what I loved about her was her optimism throughout everything. She doesn't play the woe is me card and just out for what can everybody else give me. She is very much an independent and a strong person who knows that this isn't always going to be my life. I will get out of this. I will find a way to make my dreams come true, and I will have the life that I want. And I think that's what draws Jude in, because he sees this almost from the beginning. Skylar's luck is not really there, and she tends to have several mishaps that just happen to be in front of Jude. She literally falls flat on her face and passes out right in front of him, and he ends up taking her to the hospital, and throughout some scenarios realizes that, you know, her life really isn't that great. And even though she's not asking for it, this girl absolutely deserves a little bit of a handout in life. And so Jude, being the guy that he is, being the tough but amazing guy that he is, decides that I'm going to help her out. And so he goes to Skylar and he says, listen, I would really like to help you out, and here's what I propose. I think that we should get married. Now, it's only going to be for about a year. So you're about to graduate. You will get yourself, you know, you'll get on your feet. You'll earn up some money. You'll get your own place. You'll go off to college or whatever it is that you want to do. In the meantime, you'll live with me. You'll have your own room. And because we're married, you put on my insurance and you can get the medical attention that you need. And after some hemming and hawing, Skylar realizes that this is probably her saving grace and I should probably take this. But her only stipulation is, do not kiss the bride. Now, as you can probably imagine, that doesn't last very long. In fact, it lasts about as long as you may now kiss the bride. Skylar feels a little bit of a spark there, but she chalks it up to it being a little bit of a schoolgirl crush and kind of pushes it aside. However, her and Jude become friends, and they realize that they have a lot in common. The same likes in movies and the same likes in music, and she's a little bit of a vintage girl. They like classic cars, and their relationship grows from there. This was just way more than what I was expecting. I don't know what I was really expecting. I'm the type of person that kind of likes to go into books really not knowing what they're about so much, because I like to be surprised. I feel like I find the best gems that way because I'm not anticipating a lot, so I can't really be disappointed kind of thing, and I definitely wasn't with this one. This book blew me away. This was actually my first book by Carrie and Cole. It definitely will not be my last. And I highly, highly recommend this book. It just was yummy. I gave this book a 4.5 stars, and I gave it a 3.5 for Spice. Next up, we have the Ravenhood series by Kate Stewart, which includes Flock, Exodus, and The Finish Line. Now, this is told in the POV of Cecilia until you get to the finish line, and then you get a dual POV. There are too many ways that I could spoil this series for you, so I'm going to try to keep this short and give you not too much. This is an age gap. It is a reverse harem. It's got a Robin Hood retelling in it. So we follow 19-year-old Cecilia, and she is on her way to spend, I think it's a year, with her estranged father, who happens to be like a billionaire. I say estranged father because she hasn't spent any time with him, or I think even talked to him, since she was 11 years old. So why she's going is because her father owns a factory. The plan is that she's going to work there for said year. Once that year is up, she inherits a shit ton of money. Now, she doesn't really care about the money. The only reason that she's saying yes to this is because she wants to take care of her mother, who has always tried to make ends meet and has always taken care of her and is falling on some hard times now. And so Cecilia said, okay, it's my turn, and I'm going to take care of you. Like, you will never have to worry about anything. I can do this for a year. I can do this. So she gets there, and everything kind of unfolds from there. She meets a guy, and then she meets his roommate, another guy, and she has feelings for both of them, and they're okay with that. And so her inhibitions get thrown to the wayside. She ends up in a relationship with them, but then things start seeming a little weird around town. All these people that she encounters up having this raven tattoo on them. Like all these people, she starts seeing this raven tattoo. She's like, what is going on? Sean and Dominic, the two boys that she's in a relationship with, start to give her little clues, but they're not giving her everything. And it's a bit confusing because it's a mystery and you need to figure out what's going on and where this all entails. But then you get a bit of a twist when book 2 comes along and you're like, wait a minute. What? I know that that's not making any sense, but I'm telling you right now, like, it was a good series. I really honestly had no idea what I was getting myself into. I had no idea what this book was about. None. I had it on my TBR and I was looking for something to read and I picked it up and I didn't even read the blurb on the back or nothing. I had no idea what I was getting myself into and I was like, wait a minute, whoa. I don't know what I thought that this was going to be about, but it wasn't that for sure. However, I'm going to tell you, by book 3, I really enjoyed Cecilia. I really loved the fact that she was this a little sheltered at the beginning, but then by book 3, she was this total no holds barred, I'm not taking your shit, badass chick, which I'm here for, right? I'm here for that. I love a badass chick. And that's really like all I can say because I don't want to bring any more characters into it because there is a twist at the end of book 1, which takes you right into book 2. And then you have your conclusion for book 3. But if you like Robin Hood, if you don't mind a little bit of reverse harem, if you like some strong men, if you like to figure out a little bit of a mystery, I think that you would enjoy this one. Now for Flock and Exodus, I gave them both a 4 stars, and I gave them both a 5 stars for spice, because damn. For Finish Line, I gave it a 4.5 stars, and I gave it a 4 for spice. Next up, we have Silent Waters by Brittany C. Cherry. This is another dual POV. This is a friends to lovers. It deals with a little bit of mental health and disability as well. So we follow Maggie and Brooks. At the beginning of the story, something monumental happens to Maggie, and this once precocious little 8-year-old completely changes in the blink of a moment. Because of this incident, Maggie stops speaking, and she stops leaving the house. Nobody knows what happened to Maggie. What made her stop talking, and why won't she leave the house? Nobody knows anything. They just know something happened, and we don't know what it is. Now, the real story begins about 10 years later. So Maggie, is now 18 years old. She has not spoken since that incident. She has not left the house. And then enters Brooks. They become really good friends. Him being her brother's best friend and and they are in a band together. They practice at that house, so he tends to see her every single day. He comes in and makes it a point to visit her, and they develop their own way of communicating, where they communicate through touch and they communicate through music, and he shares those things with her and kind of brings her a little bit more out of her shell, and they eventually fall in love. But when an opportunity arises, Maggie doesn't want to be the one to hold Brooks back, so she lets him go. And it's about their story and her struggles internally to try to deal with what happened to her. And this story got a really beautiful message. It's about first love and second chance, loss and trust, and the strength of what love can do. I gave this a 3.75 stars, and I gave it a 1 for spice. Next up, we have the White Monarch series by Jessica Hawkins. This includes Violent Delights, Violent Ends, and Violent Triumphs. This is basically a dual POV. Now, I say basically because you do get the point of view of a couple other characters intermittently, but it is basically a dual POV. You get, with this, a mafia romance, age gap, an enemies to lovers, it's angsty, slow burn, AF, an arranged marriage. You get a myriad of things in this series. This follows Natalia. Her father is the head of a mega cartel in Mexico. And then we have Cristiano, who has been away for many, many, many years. and is just coming back as the head of another cartel with ties in Mexico and most of Europe. Natalia is in love with Diego, who just happens to be Cristiano's brother. And their plans are to elope and run away to America so they don't have to deal with the cartels anymore and just go and live happily ever after. Now, there is no spoiler here when I say that doesn't happen. It just doesn't. Throughout this series, there is so much deceit and so many secrets to the point of you are just like, wait a minute, I don't know who I'm supposed to be rooting for. Like, who is the bad guy out of these two brothers, Diego and Cristiano? Like, what's the deal here? Who really is the bad guy? What is going on? So there's that to deal with. And I will say that Natalia did annoy me throughout the first two books because something that just didn't add up to me. You are the daughter of somebody who is the head of a cartel. That being said, that you are in the world of cartels, and she just doesn't seem to have any real regard for her safety or the knowledge of I could be in danger at any point, even given the fact, again, not a spoiler, that she finds her mother dead at, I think she was like 8 or 9 years old. She finds her mother dead. So you know that there are bad things out there. You know that people are out to get your father because of who he is, and a very good way to get to your father would be his family. Now, I do realize that Diego and her father kept her very sheltered after her mother passed away because they didn't want her to have to, they didn't want to ever put her in any of these positions. I get that, but however, you know these things, so you should be on your guard. So maybe be a little bit more aware of your surroundings. So I was a little kind of like, wait a minute, I feel like she should be a little bit more on her guard when it comes to that. But nevertheless, you do see a little bit of character development throughout this series. Ultimately, this story is about the rival between two brothers and the love that they claim to have for one woman. I gave this series all around a 4 stars, and for Violent Delights and Violent Ends, I gave it a 2 for spice, and I gave Violent Triumphs a 3.5 for spice. Next up, we have Say Yes by Lucia Franco. I love this woman. I mean, if we didn't know from Off Balance, we know now. I love this woman, so of course I'm going to read what she puts out. I'm not going to tell you too much about this because it is a follow-up novella. You must read Hush Hush before you read Say Yes. Say Yes? Okay. This is a erotic novella. It is steamy AF, and it is an age gap. It is, like I said, the follow-up to Hush Hush, and it follows Aubrey and James from Hush Hush, and I believe it takes place 4 or 5 years after Hush Hush, and so you get a little bit of insight about that. That's all I'm going to tell you. Again, you're going to want to read Hush Hush to find out who James and Aubrey are. I will tell you from Hush Hush, which is such a great book, Aubrey is just not cutting it money-wise, and her roommate, who is already comes from a wealthy family, is just bringing in money, and she's like, wait a minute, girl, how? And so Natalie gets her a job working as a high-end escort where she meets James. She encounters some people with some kinky sexual appetites, so I really highly recommend this, and then you go and pick up Say Yes. Say Yes is told in the point of view of Aubrey. I gave it a 4 stars, and I gave it a 4 stars for spice. Next up, we have Beach Read by Emily Henry. This is a enemies to lovers, and it's told in the point of view of January. This follows January and Gus. January is a romance writer who stopped believing in love. Gus is a literary writer who is stuck in a bit of a rut. Now they meet because January is staying at a beach house for the summer right next to Gus's house. January quickly realizes that I know that guy. They actually went to the same college, and January used Gus as her rival because they are both having problems with their writing. They decide that they are going to embark on a summer-long challenge with each other. That being that they're going to swap genres. So January's going to write a literary fiction and try not to give everybody a happily ever after. and Gus is going to try to write a rom-com. Now, to do this, they decide that they'll go on day dates and show each other how they research for their respective books. Now, I gotta say, I really did like this book. I loved Gus. I loved the fact that he was trying to be this, portray this cynical, grumpy man who didn't believe in anything, where he really just had some shit happen, and you know, your views tend to change in life when shitty stuff happens to you, but yet he really does have a soft spot and has a really amazing heart. I really, really did like this. This was a nice, refreshing read in the midst of everything else that I had been reading this month. I gave this a 3.75 stars, and I gave it a 2 stars for spice. Next up, we have On the Rocks by Candy Steiner. This is a forbidden love in an age gap. It's angsty. It's a slow burn. It's a friends to lovers. It's got all the good stuff. This is a dual POV and follows Ruby Grace and Noah Becker. 19-year-old Ruby Grace has just come back home from her last semester at school. Not because she's graduated college already. No, it's because she's come home to get married to a up-and-coming politician and with aspirations of making it to the White House. Now, they do live in a small town, and Ruby Grace's father is actually the mayor of this town, so people do know who she is. Noah does know who she is, but he is, I think, 9 years older than her, so they didn't obviously run the same crowds in high school. Noah works at the town whiskey distillery. It is a huge thing there. It's basically their moneymaker. He works as a barrel raiser, and they meet when Ruby comes to pick out a barrel for her fiance. What I mean by that is that you can come and buy a single barrel, and that will be your barrel of whiskey. Nobody else will ever be able to drink that whiskey. You take that barrel home, but it is $15,000. She comes in what you would expect a high-class mean girl to come in. And Noah's like, like, I don't like that type of girl. I will put you in your place like that. But he quickly realizes that it's just an act. Ruby Grace is not like that. She is absolutely putting on an act. She is, in fact, a very sweet, down-home girl who loves to volunteer. That is her passion. She volunteers at a local retirement home, but because she is coming home to get married, she's she is putting all of her dreams on hold. Noah quickly catches feelings for Ruby Grace and wants to show her that you don't have to put your dreams aside for a man or for anybody. You can be your own person. Like, you can have your cake and you can eat it too. You can be a team, and that's not what she is being shown by family and from her fiance. So that is Noah's main goal, is I'm going to show her what she could have, especially what she could have with me. We all love a bad boy who's got a heart of gold, and that's exactly what this is. I'm telling you, Candy Steiner knows how to write them. She knows how to write a slow burn. She knows how to write some angst, and baby, that's what you're gonna get. I gave this a 4 stars, and I gave it a 3 stars for spice. For the last book I read this month, we have Forget Me Not by QB Tyler. This is a dual POV. You have a second chance romance, you have a troubled marriage, and it is steamy as fuck. Okay? Okay. This follows Olivia and Bennett. Now, Olivia and Bennett are married for about the next 6 weeks when their divorce will be finalized. When Olivia gets a call from the hospital that she needs to rush down there as quickly as possible because Bennett has been in an accident and he's been banged up pretty bad, Olivia does not want to go because, as I mentioned, they are about to get a divorce, but because she is still on his emergency contact, she does go down there. She wants to make sure that he's okay. It doesn't take long of her being there to realize that something isn't adding up with Bennett. And she quickly realizes that Bennett is living about 2 years in the past, which means that from where he remembers all the stuff in between that 2 years that led up to the divorce, he has no clue what's going on. All he remembers is that he just had sex with his wife in the shower that morning. So, wait a minute. We don't live together anymore? What do you mean we're getting a divorce? So, as you can imagine, the doctors say it's probably best until he at least gets on his feet or starts to recall a little bit of his memory that he should probably go live back with Olivia in the house that he remembers, which Olivia is just not happy about. I was really intrigued with this plot. It just sounded right up my alley. I love the fact that you've got two people who are about to get divorced but could possibly have a second chance because one of them has amnesia and is that person before all this shit went down. It's got all the makings of something really good, right? However, I'm going to say I love P.B. Tyler's books. I think she writes amazingly. However, this book didn't do it for me. I'm going to tell you why. Olivia. It's Olivia. You guys will get to know that I am not here for a whiny heroine. I'm not here for it. I do not like it. It irritates me. I'm not for it. I'm okay with being a little bit naive and being a little at the beginning. But I need to see some type of character development pretty quickly. I'm just not connecting with you. And that's what Olivia did for me. In the sense of her inner monologue, her thoughts and her actions, like, it didn't add up. It was not adding up. Here's a woman that is adamant of the fact that I am getting a divorce and I don't want to have anything to do with my husband. However, it takes 2 seconds of her being in the same room as her estranged husband before she's fantasizing about their sex life and drooling over him and nearly needed to go change her clothes. Like, that doesn't tell me that I need to get a divorce. She can't have a conversation with him without fantasizing about some type of sexcapade that they have had. Like, maybe we shouldn't be getting divorced. Maybe we should try counseling, or maybe you go live somewhere else and let's like date and figure this out. Because I am clearly infatuated with you and clearly very attracted to you and can't be in the same room with you because of these things. But yes, I want to get a divorce. That just doesn't, it didn't add up to me. The reason I gave this what I gave it is because of Bennett. Y'all, this man is a dirty talker. I mean, I listened to this on Audible and he had me blushing. I was like, okay, Bennett. Okay. Now here's a man who knows what he wants. He was like, I know what I want. I'm going to get it. I don't care that you want a divorce. I'm going to show you that I'm meant for you and you're meant for me. And that's it. Point blank, period. That's it. So I was all here for Bennett. Now, you do have to get about 50% into the book before you do get a little bit of Bennett. I really did like the plot of the story. It just, Olivia kind of turned me off, for lack of a better phrase. She just wasn't adding up for me, and at one point I was like, all right, girl, I'm kind of done with you. You have annoyed me, and now I needed to move on. But I did still enjoy it, so I gave it a 3 stars, and I gave it a 4.5 for spice because Bennett. And there you have it, the 15 books that I read in August. I think it all around was a really great month for me. I can't believe that I got through 15 books. It's not that I am out there saying I have to read this many books or, I fail. Like, I fail at what? I just happened to really enjoy what I was reading this month. And, quite frankly, I think most of the books that I read were pretty thick too. But anyway, I digress. So let's get to the wrap up here. My top 5 books this month are going to be Twist, y'all, Dismount, Kiss the Bride, Exodus, and On the Rocks. My most surprising read was Don't Kiss the Bride. My biggest letdown, I don't think it's any surprise that it's Forget Me Not. And most overrated book, gonna have to go with Beach Read. Not because I didn't like it, I really enjoyed that book, but I do think that it might have been a little bit more hyped up than it needed to be. I don't know. My opinion. Okay, so my TBR for September. What are we going to get to? First and foremost, we have Out of Bounds by Lucia Franco. I have already pre-ordered this. It is coming to my Kindle on September 6th, and you can bet your sweet ass I will be MIA until I finish that because I am going to dive right in to my main man, Koba. I am absolutely going to get to reminders of him this month because I did not get to it last month. I am going to try to get through Ricochet this month. Y'all, this is a story for a completely different day, but I am going to try to get through that. Other than that, I'm thinking some Sophie Lark. I'm thinking maybe something by Carrie and Cole. I am really missing my girl *amo Jones. Like, I'm really missing her. I really want to read something by her, but I'm going to try to tie myself over with some other things this month because, forewarning, I am planning on going super dark for the month of August. And who better can do that than my girl *amo Jones? So there you go. So have you read any of the books that I read in August? I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. Also, if there is something that I have to get to in the month of September, leave those down below as well. I would love any of your suggestions. Until next time, see you later, guys. Bye.